Okay, it's 2 minutes after. I know that people often will straggle in. So I'd like to welcome everybody to COVID-19 Tough Decisions for Business Owners. We're on episode 15 today, How to Maximize Your Group Benefits. And my guest today is Aviva Abraham, Creative Planning Financial Group. We started this webinar series in the very second week after in Ontario we had emergency shutdown. And what we wanted to do was really answer the needs of helping managers and business owners and HR decision makers. So much was going on, so much change, and we decided that we would share what knowledge we had and what knowledge we heard was happening from a government perspective. So we like to provide you information, tips, and strategies to help you with the tough decisions that you have to make. If you like us, we have, you can tag us at PeopleBright and at hashtag COVID-19 TDBO. Just a little bit about myself. I am the founder and president of PeopleBright Consulting, and I'm the creator of Connect with RevUp, a concept and an approach that helps people be the best version of themselves by making them understand and work together better and improve work culture. I am an award-winning work culture specialist. My husband and I co-founded iTrans, which was an engineering firm in the late 90s. And we grew that company from 2 people to 125, 7 offices across Canada. We really wanted it to be a special kind of company where people felt they were growing and being challenged in their professional and personal growth, and then to also feel like they had a great place that they enjoyed working. And we felt we were very successful, so we actually put ourselves forward and got recognized as one of the best workplaces in Canada, top 10 twice. From that passion of people, I started PeopleBright Consulting. So my expertise and experience really starts in healthcare, where I started as a nurse, and then human resources, engineering, professional services, IT, and not-for-profits. So I really want to share with you, the opportunity to understand the group benefits and the disabilities. And so I invited my friend and colleague, Aviva, to join us. She is part of Creative Planning Financial Group, and I will allow her to share her experiences and her knowledge. But I've known Aviva for years, and I find her to be so supportive and understanding and very creative in her ability to find and seek out the best solution for your company, your situation. So I'm going to stop sharing, and I'm going to allow Aviva now to take control of the slides.
Thank you, Hilda. Okay, let me just do this properly. If you can just confirm that you now see my slides.
I see you now, and I'm going on mute, so I'm not going to.
Okay, great, and you can hear me okay, great. So thank you so much, Hilda, for inviting me to your TDBO series. I always find whatever webinars you're doing very informative, and yes, you have so much experience in the small business market as well, which is why I love talking to you. I'm going to come at this webinar on the group benefits side. There have been a lot of developments over the last few weeks. The insurers keep coming up with updates and ways to help small business owners. And even just yesterday, there was a new update that I'm going to share with you, and what's happening moving forward. But first, I'll just give you a very brief background on myself and what I've been doing and why I feel so strongly about working with small businesses. So I started, okay, sorry, I'm trying to move my slides here and it didn't work. There we go. So I started my career, I grew up in New York City, started my career as a CPA at Grant Thornton. And then I met my husband, who's Canadian, and moved to Toronto. Just about a week after we got married, my in-laws came over and sat us down in our new apartment and told us that my mother-in-law had been diagnosed with cancer a few months earlier. They didn't want to tell us anything before the wedding because they didn't want to ruin our big day. But, at this point, they needed our help. And we had just moved to Toronto, and I was American. I didn't know anything about the Canadian healthcare system. So it was really a bit eye-opening just having to go through that whole experience. Before that, I had never been exposed to, I had never had anybody close to me who had been seriously ill or sick. My grandparents were still alive. So all of this was a real eye-opener to me. Over the course of 18 months, it was very difficult watching my in-laws struggle. They were trying to keep their family life normal. I watched them running from doctor to doctor. They went to the US for experimental treatments. And my father-in-law was a small business owner. At the time, he had about 9 or 10 employees, but he was the one who drove sales, and he was the one who really managed the business. And because he was focusing more on my mother-in-law and not around as much, revenues had dropped a bit. There was, on top of all that emotional stress and the physical illness, there was also the financial stress because revenues were down. His expenses, medical expenses for my mother-in-law had increased. So it was dealing with all of that. And unfortunately, my mother-in-law did not make it. She passed away at the very young age of 54, leaving a husband and 4 relatively young children. They were teenagers, most of them. And they were devastated. But on top of all that, my father-in-law had to deal with not just the grief and the family, but also getting his business back on track. And so coming from a financial background and now understanding more about the healthcare situation in Canada, that had a big effect on me. And a few years later, I switched careers and became a financial advisor on the insurance side. And I decided to focus. I saw there was a need in the market. There was a gap in the market when it came to small business. And how did they handle healthcare situations? How do they get the coverage they need, access to medical care? And how do they get the money they need when somebody is sick? And so I decided to focus on specializing in small businesses at that time and make sure that what happened to my father-in-law doesn't happen to other people. And so that's why I focus on small business. A lot of the companies that I work with, I'm sure many of you recognize these providers. There are also some smaller providers, but a lot of the insurers today are focusing on small businesses because there are so many small businesses that have cropped up in the last 5-10 years. Like if anything, small businesses, which range from 1 to 100 employees, I really focus on working with people who are 1 to 50 employees. But a lot of businesses these days are opening up. They've got teams. Now we're going to see more remote teams. So how do we address and help teams get the healthcare coverage that they need? I'm really, really happy to say that group benefit providers have stepped up to the plate now during COVID. And that's part of what I'm going to explain here today is how they've stepped up to the plate. So the 4 main topics I'm going to cover are, what are your plan options during COVID? What are the updates from the insurers that we've gotten on plan coverage? What are the anticipated disability claims and how will that affect group plans? And what to expect moving forward when it comes to group benefits and coverage and your premiums and claims. So that's what we're going to cover today. So 3 options for group benefit plans. There are deferring payments, suspending plan benefits, and actually having to cancel your group plans. Those are the three options that insurers have given us, and that I'm going to explain exactly how that affects each business depending on what they choose. So every business is different. Everyone has had their situation change, and even though you've chosen one, it's possible to then potentially pick a different option if your situation has changed again. So deferring payments. Your plan, if you defer payments, at that point in time means your plan is still active. You can put your payments on hold. So a lot of businesses have actually had a cash crunch. Like they're still operating, they still have their teams operating, but they've had a decrease in revenue. So maybe it's harder for them to make the payments. So they had to have gone to the insurer and say, look, I can't pay right now. I'll pay in the future. It will still be owed, but they don't have to pay it immediately. So there is an allowance if there has been a cash crunch, so they can defer those payments. Claims will be paid. The team can put through claims at that time because the plan is active. But the premiums that the business owner will have to pay can be deferred for up to 3 months. Now, again, we're coming close to that 3-month period in June. And so insurers will reassess. That's part of the updates that I'm going to explain in a few minutes. But we're coming close to that 3-month time frame. But initially, everybody was given a 3-month leeway in terms of paying premiums. So for those people that have deferred payments, their team is still covered and claims have been paid on that. Now, the second option that businesses have had available to them is suspending plan benefits. So for those that really have had a large decrease in revenues coming in, and they really can't pay their benefits, but they didn't want to cancel it, they want to see what's happening going forward, or maybe they've put their employees on temporary layoff. So they can suspend the plan. So that means the plan is still there. It's not canceled. No payments are required during that period. So the plan is not totally active. So they're not allowed to put through claims, but it would be easier to reactivate the plan once the business is allowed to reopen. So now that businesses are starting to reopen, the province said we're going to start looking at who can reopen and when they can reopen, and that's starting next week. This way, it's easier for plan members, for plan administrators and business owners to say, you know what, I didn't want to cancel my plan. I want to be able to offer benefits to my employees still. They put it on hold and they suspended it. So meanwhile, they don't have to actually put the premiums out. No claims are being paid, but it will be easier to then put that plan back on board with employees and with the insurer. It will just be contacting the insurer in the future and saying whether it's in June or July, we need to go back online, and I want to have my team be able to make claims in the future. And so that's that's option number 2. Option number 3 was for those companies that really had absolutely no revenue coming in. Some of them closed their businesses, and so they had no option whatsoever of keeping their plan. Some people had to let their team go totally, and so they totally canceled their group plan. And so I did have a few groups that did have to do that. It was more in the service field. So whether it was massage therapists, chiropractors, I had one team that was a service business, and so they have no online services. They have no online or e-commerce site. And so they had to totally cancel. Out of all my groups, I have dozens of groups on with insurers. I had about 5% of my groups that had no online option. Like I said, they're either massage, chiropractor, or service provider with a storefront. And they had to totally cancel everything. Like they had no income coming in whatsoever. So about 5% of my groups were like that. 10% of my groups were mainly storefronts, but did have some online or e-commerce site. And so they put some of their employees on temporary layoff, or a lot of their employees on temporary layoff. And so they suspended their plan, but they're hopefully going to be able to be up and running again soon. And the good news is about 85% of my groups, and hopefully that's a lot of businesses as well, were able to adjust, work remotely. Maybe they saw a dip in revenues, but they were able to keep their employees active, maybe on a reduced time frame or just reduced payroll. But 85% of my groups were able to stay active. And unfortunately, that small 5% had to cancel the group benefits, and will have to start totally over if they are able to open up in the future. So talking about temporary layoffs, I know that Hilda has dealt with that with a lot of her business owners. So in certain cases, businesses were putting their team on temporary layoffs. So what does that look like on the group benefit side? The standard guidelines were that group benefits would allow you to temporarily lay off your team for 90 days. They're going to reassess this in June. And one of the updates we've gotten yesterday was from Sun Life. And what they said was, we're allowing temporary layoffs to go into, instead of 90 days, to go up to 6 months. So if a business can't get up and running again for 6 months and they're keeping their employees on temporary layoff for up to 6 months, Sun Life will allow the employer to continue benefits now into 6 months. But the rule is that you have to treat your entire team the same. So you can't have some of your team on temporary layoff and you say, I'm not covering you for group benefits. And another part of your team, you say, yes, I will cover you. So whoever is on temporary layoff, they need to be treated the same. And again, because Sun Life now announced a 6-month allowance for temporary layoff and to be covered for group benefits during that time, other group insurers, maybe not everybody, but some of them may come on board and say the same. So we have to continually stay updated and see what the insurer is allowing us to do. And what I suggest for business owners is that they check in with their group benefit provider, and they should ask the question, what are you doing? You know, what's the update come June? Can I continue to provide benefits? And just check in there, because every week there are new announcements and new changes in terms of this, because this is just all fluid. Everybody's trying to help out and make allowances. And once things open up next week, again, I expect things to change again.
Aviva?
Yeah.
While we're talking about temporary layoffs, maybe I can kind of comment from the human resources side with respect to layoffs in the province of Ontario. When you have a temporary layoff, you are allowed to have a temporary layoff for 13 weeks in a 26-week period if you're not paying benefits. And if you do pay for benefits, it's 35 weeks of layoffs over a 52-week period. The dilemma comes in is that after that period, whether 13 weeks or the 35, is that if you do not bring the people back, they are deemed to be terminated. So there's a problem here for those people that do not have benefits come 13 weeks, even if you guys are going to increase that for 90, instead of the 90 days. So this is where the dilemma is. And one little other wrinkle is that for companies who do not have agreements that have a temporary layoff provision in that agreement, they can be deemed to be constructively dismissing an employee. So we're going to find that there's a lot of cases from human resources perspective where people may file for constructive dismissal due to being temporarily laid off without the contract. So because we're talking about temporary layoffs, I wanted to share that little wrinkle. I think a lot of HR lawyers and HR professionals are wondering if the government will be coming up with a statement that allows people who come up to that period, which is probably June 15th, if people started laying off on March 15th, is that whether they will indeed start to think about extending that period that according to the current employment standards.
Yes, and hopefully they will step up to the plate with that. And that's where, yes, thank you. Just want to clarify, when I said standard guidelines, that was on the group benefit side, because there were other situations in the past where, sorry, there's some noise in the background from somewhere. That's where before COVID, standard guidelines on the benefit side was if there was a temporary layoff for whatever reason on the group benefit side, up to 90 days was the standard guideline where an employee could have that group benefits coverage. And
so I just wanted to add the other wrinkle, so that people are thinking of that in tandem rather than doing it at the very end. So
yeah, and you need that, definitely.
Okay.
Definitely. Okay. So more updates coming from the insurers, and I'm really, really happy to say that they did step up to the plate, unlike in some other industries where things were deferred, but you still really, really owe that money. About 2 weeks ago, the insurers started coming out with announcements. And again, depending on the company, this might be a little bit different, but many of the main insurers like Manulife, Sun Life, Canada Life, Desjardins, all announced 50% rebates. That means they are going to actually provide a credit on the bill to small business owners, to all their group benefit plans, 50% rebate on dental premiums, because we cannot go to the dentist. We haven't been able to go to the dentist. So 50% rebate on dental premiums for April and May. And again, depending on the company, some of them were able to implement that during May. Most of them said just to get their systems up and running. They weren't able to actually provide that rebate until the June bill. But the main thing is that business owners are going to get a credit of 50% on their dental premiums, effective retroactively from April 1 and from May 1. And again, they're going to assess what's happening moving forward if the dental practices are able to reopen, which we haven't had definite word on that yet. But they will reassess what will happen in June in the next few weeks. On the healthcare side, because we haven't been able to go to the therapists, the massage therapists, the chiropractors, they're offering a 7 to 10% rebate on healthcare premiums in order to help business owners, and because those services were not available for employees to use. So there will be a financial bonus there on your bill that you'll be able to see, and business owners will be able to see moving forward. So I was really, really happy to hear that and be able to pass that news along to all my group benefit clients. The other thing that they did in order to help ease the financial strain was deferring renewals. So on the group benefit side, renewals come at the plan anniversary. So if your plan anniversary was going to be June 1, what they did was they said, we're going to defer any rate increases by 2 months. So whenever renewals come, we're issued what the new rates are, and that's based upon claims. Sometimes rates stay the same. In a few cases, very few cases, they'll go down. But most times they're just due to inflation, and there have been increases in claims for a lot of small businesses in the past few years. So rates will increase, whether it's 5% or 10%. And so in order to help small businesses, they said, we're not going to implement any rate increases now because we know that you're in a cash crunch. Most businesses have had a hard time. So what they did was they deferred that. So if you have a renewal that's coming up June 1, that rate increase will definitely not go through until August 1. And again, let's see where things are. Perhaps we can renegotiate that as well in terms of not having that rate increase go through till later if the business is not up and running at that time. Again, you should reach out to whoever your advisor is or your insurance company. Your advisor should be negotiating a lower increase for you on a regular basis when your renewal comes up, but especially during this time to see what you can do in terms of having those rate increases reduced further. So, but that was really, really good news that they were able to defer and actually rebate some of the premiums.
Yeah, and someone shared with me that they only reduced 1 month for his plan.
So again, every insurance company is different. Manulife, Canada Life, and I know Desjardins had announced retroactive. They're all handling it a little bit differently. So some of them sent announcements saying, we're going to give you a rebate for April on the June bill. I had another provider say April and May on the June bill. So part of it is also just adjusting their system. Like they have hundreds or thousands of group benefit plans. So adjusting that bill, it's just going into being able to make those premium adjustments on their system. So sometimes they may need a bit more time. And sometimes they want to make sure it's done properly for everybody. So I know for sure that April was put through, depending on your company. That's why I said, call your provider, find out what they're offering so that you know what's happening with your system. So there are about 15 group benefit providers in Canada. And that's part of what's been so difficult is keeping up with all the updates from each company because each one of them implemented the changes. Some of them implemented more changes or better changes. Some of them did it faster. Some of them did it slower. So it's just you for your business, call your specific provider. And again, sometimes for large group benefits, for big corporate Canada, they implemented one thing, and for small group, they implemented something else. So finding out what you have for your business is really important. So just call your inside manager that handles your account and find out what the situation is for you. Again, now on the other change I wanted to discuss on the virtual medical care services, it'll be different. For Sun Life side, they came out with an announcement because in the last few years, every one of the large insurers have implemented virtual medical care because that's the wave of the future. Let's do more virtual care. It's beneficial, and we're going to discuss how it does affect your team, but they see that virtual medical care is the wave of the future. And so every one of the large providers have come up with some sort of program that you can access, but it was an addition Sun Life, reach out to Sun Life, find out how to access that, because they're finding that that's really, really needed, especially since people don't want to go into a hospital. They don't want to go expose themselves. Having access to virtual medical care is more important than ever. Canada Life has the same thing. They have what's called dialogue virtual medical care. You can access nurses, you can access doctors, and they're offering that free for the next little while so that you don't have to have that additional charge. When it comes to the employee assistance programs, Manulife has what's called Mind Beacon virtual medical care, and that's mental health care support. And they have the Homewood Health, which is other services. So there are some therapists that are providing therapy online. You can access that through Manulife. Again, just check out what you're able to access. If you're with Manulife, just find out what you're able to get from your group benefit provider, because a lot of this has changed in the last few weeks. Now, why is virtual medical care so important? What they found before COVID was 70% of all walk-in clinic care cases and emergency hospital visits, 70% of them, those cases could have been handled virtually, so that you don't have to go out there now during COVID and expose yourself. You can get the care that you need. You could speak with a nurse, you could speak with a doctor, you could speak with a mental health care professional and get the support that you need. And the support now, in the last few weeks, people have been experiencing all this added stress and anxiety. It's more important than ever to be able to get that virtual care. You can receive a diagnosis online virtually. You can get a prescription put through virtually, so that you don't have to expose yourself unnecessarily. So that's it on the virtual care side in terms of from your group benefit provider. The next topic that I wanted to cover was disability claims. And I know Hilda was asking me a few questions about that. We're anticipating an increase in disability claims. Why? A lot of it is on the mental health side, but also on the physical side. So what would be covered on the disability side? 90% of
Eva,
cases.
you want to change the, okay, sorry, you got the slide. I just like to let you know too that we've only got 10 more minutes, and I know we want to make sure we have some time for questions as well.
Yeah, sorry. So I'll cover this very quickly. Sorry. So 90% of all cases, and that's including COVID, if somebody's disabled, they would be covered under disability claim potentially. So we have to really see if it's a legitimate claim. But if your plan has short-term coverage or long-term coverage, you have to see what you're covered for. And again, I'll just very briefly say on the short-term disability side, if you have that, that would cover up to 17 weeks. So again, due to COVID, if you're on temporary layoff, you will not be covered during the time that you're on temporary layoff. But as soon as you are back at work, if you are still disabled during that time, you would potentially be covered for a disability claim. And that's something that you'd have to contact your insurer and your employer should that be the case, whether it's due to COVID or due to a mental health issue. That's the benefit period would start only once you're back at work. But we're anticipating an increase in disability claims, mainly on the health side, but also potentially on the physical side due to COVID. What to expect moving forward. So because people haven't been able to visit their dentists or their therapists, once everything is back online, we are expecting health and dental claims to increase. We're definitely expecting virtual care demand for virtual care to increase. We've already seen a bigger focus on mental health issues just because of the uncertainty we were dealing with, social isolation. People have lost loved ones, and that's very hard to deal with, that grief, the financial stress, and anxiety and depression. We're expecting, as I said, an increase in disability claims, and a lot of this is all, we don't know what will happen moving forward. There's still a bit of uncertainty, but just so you know, and you can keep up to date, I'm sure between Hilda and I, we can issue or put out there what the insurers are going to be providing moving forward. So in summary, insurers are going to reassess everything as we open up again. Virtual and mental health care coverage is now more important than ever. And as long as you need your team for your business, supporting them with healthcare coverage is more important than ever before. Thank you so much. If you have any questions, we're going to check the chat. And I'm offering a complimentary 30-minute group benefit insurance assessment should you need that for your business or want to talk about it more. So reach out to me.
Well, thank you, Aviva, I just wanted to make sure people can hear me. Thank you, Aviva, for giving us a really good update of what's happening out there, the position that insurers are taking, and it's all a wait and see. Everybody is assessing things and recognizing that sometimes making even a waiver of premiums is a big thing because there's an IT back. And then we'll open it up for questions. I have a few more slides as well to share with people, but thank you very much. Do you want to carry on with the questions, Jenny? A couple of questions people have. I'm going to share my screen back.
Yeah, David has a comment. He said that this was very helpful. Now I know what to ask my insurance company. And David, feel free to unmute yourself to comment further if you would like.
It was very thorough and I must say it's very thorough and very informative. I appreciate it.
Good, good.
I'm glad.
I did have a question too about if somebody allowed that period of renewal to, like that suspension to subside, would they need to reapply again? And how difficult is it? You know, will people be denied because maybe they're at high risk?
What do you mean in terms of high risk? Because there might be more claims?
Yeah, you know, people, or the rate will be higher because they had this, they let their period lapse. So it's like a start all over again.
So I think there's going to be a lot of leeway there. They understand, like for certain businesses, they just had no choice. Like nobody was coming to visit a massage therapist. So they understand that's why they closed their business. That's why they had to cancel. So it's not necessarily a higher risk. It's more the situation changed. Now they can open up again. And we have yet to see when that's going to happen. But it's not necessarily a higher risk. It's just the situation changed again. We haven't been informed in any definite way in terms of what that's going to look like. We were told, like some of the businesses actually asked, well, can I cancel my dental coverage because I can't go to the dentist? And a lot of businesses were asking that up front before they came out with the announcement about the rebate. And so their suggestion at the time was don't cancel your dental portion, because when you want to bring that back on, we can't guarantee your rate and it may be a higher rate. So most businesses did not cancel their dental coverage. We don't know what rates are going to be going forward. That's part of the whole dilemma. We're going to have to see. But they're not necessarily at a higher risk. It's more because of what happened.
Sorry, Hilda. May I ask Aviva a question?
Of course, of course. Can I just mention in front of you right now is a list of the webinars that we've done. Today's session is episode 15, so this will give you a glance of some of the topics that we've covered, but go ahead, Neil.
Sorry about that. So Aviva, right now, my perception is the insurance carriers are playing nice. They're trying to build good rapport, goodwill, which, and acknowledging the circumstances are unprecedented. But going forward, all things point to this is going to be a 2-year journey through this in some way, shape, or form. Do you anticipate, or have you heard any rumblings of the carriers will be putting in COVID specific policies with respect to, if you get sick with COVID and we find out you're not wearing a mask, then your coverage is null and void? I mean, at some point, I think that there may be a time where they have to make sure that people are doing what they need to
As yet has tried to, has said anything about anything beyond the next few weeks. Even that, I find it's a little bit slow to come out with what they are going to do for us. It's just because things are so uncertain. In terms of covering COVID now, during what we're dealing with now, like especially on the disability side, they said yes, if somebody is sick and they are actively working, COVID is covered under the disability coverage. They did say yes, any medication you need or whatever it is, that is covered. They haven't issued any exclusions, but in terms of specifically what will be covered, so much is still unclear. And that's the difficulty in dealing with all this, is just going to each insurer and asking those specific questions relating to your team and your business. But no, they haven't come out with a blanket coverage, what they will and won't cover per se. I think they're waiting to see a little bit further what will happen, because businesses haven't opened up again officially, certain businesses. And so it's very, very hard. And insurers are super, super conservative. So I think they're waiting to see what will happen moving forward before they make those kind of announcements.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's a great question, Neil, because people who apply for disability often find that it's not as easy as one thinks. So great question.
And actually, sorry, just very quickly, what they did say when they extended the temporary layoff to 6 months is that it does not extend to disability. Disability coverage will not be included in that.
Of course, I suspect there'll be a lot of claims coming out as people start to return to work. I just wanted to share that we have our upcoming webinars are on Friday this week. I'll be talking about how to reopen your business safely. Last week I focused on how to reopen your business, but looking at it from the human resources side and some of the concerns that you had with some safety. And this week I'll reverse it and really focus on how you will open safely. So we're going to do a deep dive into that. And then following on Wednesday, I'll be talking with my friend and colleague, Helen Patterson, who is part of Live Life Well, and she and I are going to have a hot seat discussion on how to manage mental health and mental wellness in the workplace. We'll be tackling concepts on addressing performance management, whether it's terminations, performance, and just good performance and motivation. And on the 19th episode, June the 3rd, we'll be talking about how to build strong work cultures during COVID-19. I do want to mention too that take advantage of what Aviva is offering with her 30-minute consultation at People Bright Consulting, we too can help. If your questions are about government subsidies, reopening safely, business strategies, working remotely, any HR issues, happy to have you come and join me. We'll have a strategy session, so do take advantage of that as well. Are there any other questions, Jenny? Anybody put something on the chat line, or anybody want to come forward and ask one final question? I know we're just slightly over the time period, but just thought I would ask.
Nothing on the chat line. Feel free to unmute yourself, everyone.
Well, on behalf of Aviva and myself, thank you very much. Thank you, Aviva, for taking your time and really helping us understand what's in the minds of group benefit providers, because that helps with one more piece of the puzzle that we as businesses are doing to try to navigate this very, very difficult and challenging time. So thank you, everybody, for taking time in your day. Stay safe, be well, and thanks again.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.